Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is WeDon'tDie.com, where you can always find our free Sunday gathering with medium demonstration included. I have past episodes of my shows. You can join one of our classes. We have a Facebook group and so much more. That's all at WeDon'tDie.com. Now, on to our show. Our guest today says, you don't have to be a spiritual person or have any mediumship skills. It is love that binds us. Love is the eternal essence of what connects us always. Mary D'Agostino is a professional counselor, medium, Reiki practitioner, and so much more. She is mom to 5 grown children, one of whom is in spirit. She has a special book that we will be talking about today called 111 Days of Divine Intervention, A Mother's Healing Journey. You can find out more about her on her website, marydagostino.com. Mary, a warm welcome to you to We Don't Die.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandra, for having me.
Absolutely. You have a beautiful smile, and I'm so grateful you're here. Why don't you start off telling us where you're from, where you're talking to us from today, and then a little bit about your past, who you are. Let us know a little bit about you.
I'd love to. Thank you. So I am in Colorado. I live in northern Colorado, so pretty close to the Wyoming border in Fort Collins. It's a nice college town, but I did not grow up here. I've lived on each coast, and ended up in the middle. So I love it here. I've been here about 24 years now. I can't believe it. I was born on the East Coast in New York, then Ohio, then California, back to Boston, Washington, D.C., and here in the middle. And I love that my journey has taken me to all those places because I've been able to connect with so many wonderful people and so many different places and ways that people live and make their lives. And I think that indeed gave me that wonderful way you spoke about. I truly believe that love binds us and love connects us. So no matter where we live, no matter where we end up or travel to, that's what I found was the connector. And so here I am here. Yeah, so
Perfect. And I'm so grateful. Now, I know you're up to a lot currently with spiritual things. Has your profession always been that, or somewhere I read that you're a
yeah,
writer and more?
right. I do a lot of things. I feel like that is kind of the way I am. I always say I should focus on one thing, but then I said, no, that would be boring. My work, my life has always had a, let's say, spiritual foundation, and spiritual meaning not religious, but I always felt a very deep connection to something other than what we could see with our human eyes. And so that kind of led me throughout my younger years to discovering who am I? I had those questions when I was about 8. Who am I? Who are we? What are we doing here? Little girl laying in her bed wondering what's the meaning of life? So I always had that kind of curiosity and openness. And being raised, this story is so collective that we have our unique individual soul selves that we usually know as children. We don't call it that, but we know that who we are in a way. Then as we grow older, I was told, okay, you have to do this, you have to go there, you have to live this way. to be accepted, to be approved of. So I went on my journey of trying to live as my family and my culture described to me. And so I did that, but always spirit intervened. So I became a mom at a young age, and that allowed me to connect with my mother and father-in-law, who became my first spiritual teachers. Really, they had a similar family to my own, big family, 8 kids. And I know that it was divine intervention. So I'll say that even though I do a lot of spiritual work now, and my practice is the healing arts and holistic different practices, that it was back then that I was being awakened to it, and before people really knew what's human consciousness, what is meditation, what is, and this was in the late 70s in California. So, we were all over that. So my journey took me still wanting to be fit into society, be normal, so to speak, or whatever that may mean. But yeah, so I was a mom, and I raised my kids, and I lived kind of I was always a writer, loved writing, loved to really focused on being a part of my community and doing what I was told to do. And so I was, I had different jobs, did different things, but mostly was a mom, and having 5 children is, quite, a lot. So, but throughout that time period, I always had this very strong back to my, who am I? What am I doing here? What is the meaning of life? And had divine interventions, as I call them, that showed me what spiritual, you can call them spiritual experiences. And so even though I was living kind of the traditional wife, mother, um, I always kept that secret kind of part of me alive. And so I want to tell this story because it keeps coming up about how I came out of the spiritual closet in 1999 on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Wow.
I did. And these are the kind of things that I want to assure others that happen, that we are never forgotten. We're our soul, our spirit, our angels, our spirit helpers, whatever you may feel as that deep connection, are always with us and always supporting and loving us and guiding us. And you hear that when we don't listen, they turn up the volume. Well, I was not really listening, and my life had gotten to be so much me trying to just be the perfect mom, wife, person, and always feeling that sense of disconnect. And so I started to remember and bring in spiritual, so to speak, tools, my words of wisdom, my journal, my quotes. I love quotes. I put them all in my closet. I had a big walk-in closet in my home. Put all my spiritual tools, all my basket with incense or candles in my closet. And when my 5 kids would go off to school and my husband would go off to work, I would take some stuff out of the closet, set it out, and I'd sit and I'd meditate and pray and remember and read inspirational books. And then I read a book that I loved, and I wrote to the author, and she was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. She had quite a bestseller back then. And I wrote to her and said I loved her second book. And she sent my letter to Oprah Winfrey. And that was back in the day of writing letters, which I still do and I still love to do, and handwritten. And so the Oprah Winfrey Show called me, and I went through the process. They filmed my closet. Me in my closet going, this is where I sit, Oprah. And yeah, so it was aired back in March of 1999. And I was shocked in a way. I wasn't ready really for the what was to transpire, because I knew I was not living an in alignment with my truth. And so, but as spirit does, I truly believe spirit isn't going to give us anything that is too harsh or un we always can, and you have to dig deep. So um but spirit is loving, unconditional love. Anything that's not that is not spirit. It's probably our ego or our other things that are there, that we want to always come back to soul spirit and go, this is in my highest good, this is loving, this is clear. So 2 years later, we ended up moving to Colorado. I had prayed to leave the East Coast. It had just gotten to just busy and kind of not able to connect really clearly where I was living. And so we moved. I wanted to get back to California, where my family of origin was from, but that also was a good thing that didn't happen. And we ended up in Colorado. And then within a year, my whole life changed. I did not know it at the time. Went back when I got outed by Oprah Winfrey on the Oprah show. But my husband was going to be let go from his job, but he had such a high position, they had to move us to Colorado. And I had no idea, but what had been going on at work was similar to what was going on at home. It had to change. He was he was abusive. And so it all came out. And it came out in the most I was so protected. My children and I were so protected continuously. No doubt, divine interventions every step of the way. And by me aligning with that, and what I mean is, hoping, praying, asking, connecting, remembering that, again, that we are unconditionally loved. And that was also by not just my spirit helpers and angels, who I was very close to angels since I was a little child, but with some of my loved ones in spirit that were my grandmother. One of my grandmothers, my mother-in-law, who was my first real unconditionally loving teacher. She passed away very young, and on the day of my daughter, her first grandchild's birth. So there were so many synchronicities. She was my daughter, who I had when I was 18, not planning, was born on the same day, 20 years to the day later than my husband at the time, and had a sister who, her name was Susan, and she was born with a heart defect in 1957 and couldn't live. So 20 years later, I have a daughter, name her Suzanne, and she's born healthy on the same day that little Susan was born. Little Susan lived only 6 weeks. So these kind of synchronicities. And then my mother-in-law passed away 8 years later, 9 years later, on the same day, in November. And so you kind of go, what are those? When that's another thing I'd love to share, and that's why I wrote my book, 111 Days of Divine Interventions, because we can connect these little dots, these little experiences that then it becomes a new story, so to speak. It's that underlying knowing that there's something grand happening beyond our our human mind, but also making sense to our human mind. That is our soul path. And it is just, the seeds, the breadcrumbs, but I like to say weaving it when you look back or in the present moment, because this is when these things happen, you can see how the divine interventions weave through your life, your days, and make for a different viewpoint of life. Uh, Very powerful.
You and I have a coincidence, synchronicity, magical occurrence. We were emailing back and forth for a little while. And then you wrote me and you said that your son Brandon was born in Beverly Hospital, Massachusetts, when you were visiting. And guess what? While my parents were visiting my grandparents, I too was born in Beverly Hospital in Massachusetts. And it was just one of those things that gave me the goosebumps that said, oh, yes, this is the right direction to go on. What are the chances of that, Mary? Slim.
What are the chances? And I didn't I don't tell people that because nobody knows Beverly, Massachusetts. It was a tiny little hospital in a tiny town. But yeah, my son Brandon was born there, and so were you.
Sweet. Let's talk about Brandon. And it sounds like you've had a good faith in spirituality and the afterlife and all of that leading up to his physical passing. Do you want to share about that?
Sure. Yes, I did have that spiritual connection, which I'm so grateful for. And again, even if it's a small spiritual connection, it's big. Any little bit is powerful. So my son Brandon was my only child not born in California, and he came in to my life. I was not expecting to have another child, and boom, there I was pregnant with him. And ever since he was born, it felt like my life was then taking a path that was for my highest good and his and my children. And so I prayed before I had him. I said, I really need to reconnect with spirit and be living a little differently. And we lived in Massachusetts at the time for just a very short while. And I didn't really feel that was my place to live. And so the moment he was born, then I was pregnant, and I knew, I said, wow, this kid, he must have a plan or something. So fast forward, yep, there he was. And within a year, we were moving to another, Washington, D.C. And then within 7 years, we were moving to Colorado. And he was just a whirlwind of love and also challenge. He was my youngest, and he was definitely the youngest, meaning, he was charming and funny, and just nobody could get mad at him ever, because he would make a joke and make everybody laugh. So, but he also was incredibly sensitive, and I knew that. And he was highly intuitive also. And he felt the pain of the world. And I can say that now because I knew it then too. He brought home, as a child, he would bring home stray children, as I called it. And because they needed me, they needed our family, they needed a mom present. So he'd say, Mom, can so and so come over? They don't have anywhere to go after school. So I now have several sons that they call me Mom, who are grown men who were friends of Brandon's that he brought home. And so that's Brandon, and he was just a love, but he could not. It was hard for him to kind of deal with the hard things in life, I suppose, being empathic, sensitive, sometimes that does occur. And and so he struggled a bit, and had some addiction issues, but we grew closer. And I just, he and I had a very strong connection, as I said, and he did that with his siblings, his three brothers and sister. Very strong, very kind of spiritual connections with all my kids. So when he was 24, he had gotten his dream job. So Brandon also was in the fitness industry. He loved helping people get fit. He had his dream job was selling luxury cars. So because he loved a luxury, he did. He loved the luxury. So he had his dream job. He was selling these highly expensive cars for doing very well, like top salesperson. And one day he took out, one evening in January of 2017, he took out a Maserati, brand new Maserati, for a test drive. And it was dark out, and they would take them down this dark road near the dealership and test drive them. Okay, young men, what do you think they're doing?
Going fast.
Yeah, and he was speeding down the road and lost control of the car and ended up being killed in the car. But the story around that, which I want to share, is the synchronicities and the divine interventions that are quite profound. That's why I named the book I wrote was 111 Days. So the 111, and we, in the spiritual circles and metaphysics, we talk about numbers, and I find numbers to be symbols of how we understand things. Humans understand symbols, and that the spirit world often will speak to us in numbers, number sequences, same numbers that you see often. So I had known about that for quite a few years. And on January 11th, so 111, a friend of mine gave me a recorded meditation, angel meditation, she called it. Connect with the archangels, on 111. And so I said, okay, I'll listen to that. And it was something I do often, guided meditation. I do that for people also. So I listened to the guided meditation called 111, Connect with the Angels. And I had quite a unique experience. I felt that I was going through a portal of light. And in my meditation, I could see the one on the left side, the one in the middle, and the one on the right. And they were columns of light. And I was pushed through this columns and in my meditation, and I felt uncomfortable, but I felt the angel presence, powerful, strong, loving, unconditionally loving. And they said, it's going to be okay, but you have to go straight through. Don't stop, don't waver, focus, you'll be okay. Go through the portal. And I said, wow, okay. And as I'm apt to do, I write. I like to journal after I meditate, and I wrote a few things about that. So January 11th, January 12th, January 13th, Friday, was when Brandon took the car out in that evening. And but what had happened during that evening, where I was physically 70 miles away from Denver, where he was driving the car, I was in session with two clients, a husband and wife, and doing intuitive counseling. And I had a vision in the session. At the same time Brandon was passing, I had a vision of this beautiful angel goddess in the sky, in the night sky. And she was taking stars out of the sky and placing them on the earth, and then picking the stars up off the earth and putting them in the sky. And I shared that with my clients, I said, I just had this vision, and I was explaining it as it was happening. And we all looked at each other, and I knew it wasn't for them. And I know that sometimes very rarely happens in session where I'll have a vision and uh, it was more collective. It was, and we talked about it. It was like, wow, that's like life. That's like birth and death. This goddess or this beautiful divine being just takes the stars off out of the sky or from heaven, and they come to the earth. And when it's their time to go back into the heavens, she takes them off and puts them back. And it was such a loving, profoundly loving experience. And we just sat there and looked at each other. And so then the session ended, and I the next morning, so Brandon, when he took the car out and had his crash, he wasn't found. Nobody knew where he was. The road was so dark that when they went looking, they didn't see the car. It was in a very shallow retention pond down a ravine. And so the next morning I get frantic texts, which had been coming in the evening before after my vision and my session, but I didn't see them. They didn't come through my phone. Another, protection. And so that morning, his fiance was calling me and said, Brandon didn't return the car. We don't know where he is. And so I went on his social media, which he was very much loved his social media, and I saw a video, which is still forever in social media land, is this video. He posted, it was about 15 seconds of his hand driving the car, and it just showed the speedometer in this Maserati going from 0 to 111, 111, and stopped.
Wow.
When I saw that after my 2 days prior vision of the me going through the 111, and then my vision with my clients, I knew, I thought Brandon went through the portal. He is gone. He's gone. And that I knew it in a way that felt grounding and loving, and um, that feeling that and it's fleeting as as a person, as a mother, it was fleeting, but it was there, and I felt it. I felt the surety. And so then a moment later, the fear crept in, and I started talking to Brandon, and I said, where are you? Where are you? And I heard him. He said, I'm right here, Mom. I'm okay. I'm okay. And I saw his big smiley face, and I saw it looked like water around him, but it was sparkling. And I said, okay, well, you have to let us know where you are then. So terrible day, worst day. He was found that morning, and we all had to go without being not told what had happened to him, down to the sheriff, and they told us, and that he had died instantly. And so so of course that puts, that was the human mother. It was just very terrible, but I had that experience that was wrapping me in so much love, and it was that divine love. It's that knowing of eternal love and eternal protection I felt. So fast forward a month later, and I was out walking, and it actually was February 22nd so it was a little over a month after his passing, and I was out walking, and I was talking to Brandon, and in my mind, and I also recommend that for everyone. As you said, we don't have to be spiritual or know anything of how to do, but when we speak to our loved ones, who have passed in our mind know that that's communicating with them. Absolutely. And will only, if it feels scary or frightening, that's not them. That's our own grief or fear. But talk to them as if they were there. And I always recommend that. So I was talking to him and I asked him, I said, what happened when you died? No, I always would question that. And then I would know, well, he was okay. He was okay. He told me he was there. And so he did come through and he said, do you want to know? And what happened when I died? And I said, yes. But as long as it's not scary, I don't want to know anything. And he's like, don't worry. So I walked home from my walk and I got out my journal and I sat and listened. And he told me what it felt like when he died. And forgive me, I'm going to get my book. It's right there because I'm going to read a little bit of it.
Absolutely.
Because this is a message I feel is meant to be collective for others and it feels like just a giant hug and love. So this is let's see, hold on a minute. I'm sorry, I have it. My book with all my markings is over there.
It's okay. And you can show off the book cover too. I know the people listening on podcast can't see it, but it's
Look,
111 Days of Divine Intervention. Oh, you need to talk, not me. So the camera's picking you up. Hold it up
oh,
again.
okay. Hold
Hold it
up
up
the
again.
book, 111 Days of Divine Intervention. And I'll tell you in a minute of this story of this picture with the wings. But let me tell you what Brandon said about what he experienced when he passed. He said, so here is how it went. I was driving and along came this giant angel. She snatched me right out of that car. She lifted me up and held me in her arms. And I thought it was you, Mom. I thought it was you. She looked and smelled like you. She felt like you, like I was going home. She held me and we watched the car just for a moment, and then she took me somewhere. She held me and told me how much she loved me. I still thought it was you, Mom. I think it was you. I felt the connection like when you love me, I felt that love goes on and on. She was your love and my love, all the love that I ever felt and all the love I ever gave. I felt this warm glow. It is where I have been returning to over and over again. I can remove myself from it and visit places, but then I return to the love. Well, I can't ever really leave it, ever. And it was all a part of the plan to light up this love again in our family, to make it, the love, the strongest, more like remembrance. We forgot, but you didn't forget, Mom. You never forgot love. You fed me love, Mom, so much love. Thank you. And I said, thank you.
Mary, that's beautiful. And you were just returning from your walk. You sat down with your journal, had pen in hand, and those are the words that came.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I wrote them. I have that journal is very special to me. Yes. And I just listened and I could feel it too. I could feel the experience. And then I realized, then I went back and put the 111 meditation, the vision in my session with the angel or the goddess angel in the sky, picking up the stars, putting them back. And then when Brandon shared that with me, I knew. I said, oh, he got picked up out of the car and did not feel a thing. He was placed back up in the sky, in the stars. And I knew what he was saying too, because every time he said it was like I was coming home. So my home, my physical home, which is something I intentionally created through my divorce and beyond, was so that anytime anyone steps into my home, and that includes clients who come and even virtual, they are greeted with love. They are greeted with peace. They're greeted with healing love. And that is my home. And so every time my kids, of course, come in, it's like, oh, I'm home, Mom. It's like my space gives them a hug and holds them, and everything is okay. And Brandon had done that over the years. As he struggled, he would come in the door of my home and, Mom, can you cook me food? Can you, you know? So yeah, so connecting those divine synchronicities, quite profound. And there were many more. And I wrote some of them in the book, 111 Days. And that's where I chose the 111 days to, so there's 111, either they're reflection prompts. So, and this meant for people who are grieving, going through the early, or anyone really that has grieved or lost a loved one. But this particularly, I put just short stories of inspiration and comfort, so that we know, and even if we don't know, but we're just hoping that we're still connected with our loved ones who have passed. There's hope here, and it opens it up, and it settles in. And then there's writing, or you don't have to write, but you can if you want, because I'm an avid journaler. Just, days. So days where I wrote some little prompts of reflection that will help as we process and move through the loss, and invite spirit in, and also be in our lives to heal. Yeah, and so one more thing about the 111, and I did write about that in here. On the day Brandon was born in September, a beautiful fall day in Beverly, Massachusetts.
Birthplace of
Nothing
Sandra.
Not right. Nothing like it. I lived in New England for only 3 years, but those fall days, oh my gosh. And not every fall, I'd learned, not every fall is as gorgeous. That one in 1992 was spectacular. So he was born in September, and then he passed January 13th. And that is exactly 111 days. So he let me know that on his first birthday, the first when he was in spirit. I was laying there, and I on a massage table receiving massage and crying and grieving, and I was like, how can I honor you, Brandon? What can I do? And he loved it. He'd always do these 90-day fitness challenges, 90-day. And I thought, well, I could do like 100-day or a 90-day soul challenge and I heard him say, Mom, it's 111 days. And I was like, what? And I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to be off the table and count and see if it was true. And it was. I was, these things happen, but every time they happen, it is a huge blessing, and a knowing, another breadcrumb, another connection, another weaving, that we are so much more than just our physical bodies, that there are 111 days between the day of his birth and the day he passed. And so every year, which is during this time now, it's during, I say that's an 111 days of healing for me, and soul, just celebration. I celebrate my relationship with him often, because he is still quite a light. And then on the cover of the book has a photograph of Brandon. The original photograph, it's right, it's here, was taken without angel wings. This is an original photograph of Brandon carrying a log down. He was quite a muscular young man. He picked up a log, his best friend and him, and this is when he was healing from he had a near-death experience about a year and a half before he actually passed. And he was healing from it, and he was doing these inspirational things. He lifted the log up, his friend took a picture, and that picture, I never knew about it until one of my sons found it and made it into those gave it to me for Christmas the second year after Brandon. And so then it was January, the second year of his anniversary of his passing, and I was sitting, the picture was over here on the shelf. I was sitting doing my meditation, and I heard again, I heard Brandon say, "Mom," that familiar "Mom, Mom." And I was like, "What? I'm meditating. Leave me alone." So I looked over at the picture to my right, and as I moved just a bit, the light shone on the picture and gave Brandon angel wings. And so I took a snapshot of it, and I thought, okay, Brandon grew his angel wings. And that's where I put it on the cover of my book, because again, the light never shone on the picture again that way. It did it that one day, and I thought it's going to do it again, but it didn't. And so I took the the divine intervention, and I said thank you, and I said okay. So he has a way of pushing me past my limits, right? Of my own spiritual connection and growth and healing, and so here I am. I wrote this book to share not just the stories, as I said, but to give others hope and inspiration, and knowing how they too can have these experiences. And as Brandon was in life, we remain the way we were in life, our personalities very clearly. He is that way in spirit. And so I have collected sons, young men and women, any age really, but quite a few, many moms and dads who've lost sons around the same age as Brandon, 20s, late teens, 20s, maybe early 30s. And they come to me, and I do work as a medium and a spiritual counselor. And so he brings moms who need to hear exactly what I have to offer, dads, siblings, and I can offer, as you know, Sandra, we have these life experiences that are quite challenging and painful. And for me, it's what am I going to, I heal. As I heal, I can share what I learned, the wisdom. I can pass it on. I can give it to others who need it, because early grief in child loss, even though I had so much connection, was challenging. So I wrote and I prepared, and I wanted to offer this as something where, okay, you need something. And so I feel like it's everything I offer is a blessing. It's something where I'm going to hold you, or you're going to be held, and so you can feel comforted. So yeah, so I have and this is where I'll say, and I created by the urging of Brandon. He was quite the salesperson, let me tell you. I just started it. It's a nonprofit organization that for every sale, the sale of the book goes to this, and it's called Brandon's Angels, and it is provides care packages for those in grief. So if you know someone who is experiencing death loss, if you yourself are and would like to receive some love across the miles, you can, that's what Brandon's Angels is here for. Because even though I had the support of my children and my community of people, I'm the healer, I'm the mother, and I needed so much support, and I did not get it from people I thought would, but I did have to find my own way. And I did find some really good grief counselors, but it took a while to find the right fit. And so my purpose is to help others to find what they need in the way they need it. So, yeah.
Thank you for all that you do. And it's grief in action. I have a daily calendar upstairs and just a motivational quote. And it says the best way to the other side of something is straight through it. And I know the same thing holds true with grief. And just because we believe in the afterlife and have a spiritual foundation, it doesn't make it easy, because our bodies, our minds, we still grieve. The more we love, the more it hurts. So putting those together as tools, and I'm a big fan of journaling. I know people mean well in our lives who aren't going through it and they want to help. Some people disappear, unfortunately, not knowing how to help, but to have a journal to be able to go through your 111 days and get either some comfort or a story or a tool to journal, I think that's all good. I want to ask you, Mary, your foundation of meditation is amazing. Do you think that made a difference for, or makes a difference for how Brandon communicates with you? Because ultimately, personally, I think it makes a huge difference if we can learn how to quiet the mind some and really be in touch with our soul. It opens up a whole new world. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of meditation, and if you think that that's made a difference with your connection?
Yes, absolutely it has. And I learned about meditation many, many years ago, and I put it into practice quite, when I got outed on the Oprah Winfrey show, I had to,
That's wild.
and I thought, okay, I guess I'm on to something here. I better continue this. But I feel like it's more than, yes, it's more than just a foundation. It's actually it is a foundation. And what's happening is when you meditate, and it doesn't have to be any particular way. It is simply, I say this, so I facilitate journaling courses, and and I always start our journaling with guided meditation. And I feel like sometimes you need that. So there's a lot of, I offer short 5 minute, for just to help. Because what that does when you quiet your mind, and even if you need to have some words to focus on, which is what guided meditation is, that which is what I found really was helpful. It helped because I have a very vivid imagination. But even if you don't, if you use a guided meditation for 5 minutes, or just sitting there and meditate on one word, peace, love, joy, you are shifting your vibration. And I feel that it's like when you learn mediumship and you talk about sitting in the power, that's what I feel. I didn't know that those words, but that's when you sit in the energy of love or peace, or just wanting to feel connected or better, or less distraction. You are inviting in that higher vibration, and your whole system starts to shift. So simple, 5 to 10 minutes, one word, or thinking of, listening to a guided meditation. It opens all your chakras, all your energy, and it opens your ears and your heart, and you can then start to it hear, you can feel, you can sense. So yes, that was a profound foundation for connecting.
And
Absolutely.
journaling is important. And I know in the beginning, the mind kicks in. Is this me? Is it Brandon? Is it us? And I say, get into the practice of it. And like you say, spirit comes through with love. Any fear or weird stuff, that's our ego. But the more we do it, I think the more our loved ones understand the process as well from their side, the more we get comfortable with it, the more we trust, the more it just starts to flow. And mid flow, don't stop and read, don't do that, just keep writing. And then after the fact, I've had things happen to me that words have shown up that are not even in my vocabulary, and I've had to look up words and phrases and like, where's this come from, some beautiful poetic things. And working with our soul's power and with our loved ones, it's definitely a beautiful practice. And I love how you put it about getting into that meditative state in the beginning and getting into a practice of it. I think our loved ones really want us to know they're right by our side. And we're so busy in our minds most of the time, checking our phones and, everything we have on our agendas, that we don't give them that time that we are at peace so that they can say hello.
Yes, yes, absolutely, Sandra. It's a practice, and you get stronger, like the muscles, that my son was always like building the muscle, and so it does. And it brings so much joy too, to feel the connection, and not, with our loved ones in spirit, and also with all the other beauty and love in our daily lives. And we can more easily connect with that, because as you said, the world is very distracting, and it gets louder and louder. So the the practice of connecting with our inner self, journaling, of course. And um, yeah, highly recommend that. It's just listening to your own voice. But that's like I was practicing, which I don't don't even know what it was called, but automatic writing. And you can tell the voice of your loved one and your voice, as you said, or a spirit helper or an angel, or whatever vibration you feel is helpful. So, and it's fun, it's enjoyable to do that, and to know beyond a doubt your loved ones are right there with you, and they are getting through. They're trying to get through in whatever ways. And when you make space for them, so that's the practice of meditation, making space for your spirit loved ones, for your own spirit, your own higher self. Um, and they'll fill it up. They fill it right up.
They do. Mary, would you tell us your website and also what we can find there?
Sure. Okay, so it's my name, and it's MaryDagostino.com. And you can find all the offerings I do as in my healing arts practice, which is called Heart of Gaia. And my books, I have fiction, I have my 111 days, and more about Brandon's Angels. Um, and what else is there? Just everything I offer is right there. You can look around. I put it all in one place, and enjoy being there, because every time I also infuse my website with blessings. So just like when you're entering into my home, my healing space, you're coming into the website and you're like, oh, I hope you feel the love from me, the love from my son and spirit, and all the other loving energies. So yeah, you can find everything there. I do some workshops. I teach the journaling, and virtual and in real life.
I love that. I love that. Has Brandon come through in other ways besides just through the journaling in your mind and heart?
Oh yeah. He comes through. In fact, yesterday there's very specific, and there's some stories in the book, but there he comes through hawks that soar in places that you wouldn't always see them. Hawks, feathers, um, and what else does he do? Lights. He had the light outside flashing on and off for a good year. Anytime the street light, anytime we'd ask, it started on his day of his celebration of life. And that meant so much to me and my children when they come driving up and late at night and boom, 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 the street light across the street. And it started doing it this past January right on the day of his 7-year anniversary of his passing. And then the next day, the street light people came and changed the light. And so I knew that was a completion. Like it was 7 years. So now he was going to come some other way. But just yesterday, I was sitting at one of my grandson's football games. So he comes a lot when we're together as a family because he loves that. And there was a hawk that came and was circling us so low. We thought, what? This hawk's going to come down and sit on our laps. So those are some of the ways that he shows himself. Yeah.
Beautiful. Not too long ago, I talked to Mom Diane Calderon, and she had a story about where she lived, no bluebirds in sight. And after her son passed, bluebirds started showing up. And it was really interesting. She tells a great story. But where I live, I have bird feeders and have for many years, and I've never seen a bluebird. When I finished my interview with her, bluebirds showed up at my bird feeders, like a dozen of them. And I got goosebumps like you wouldn't believe. And I just took it in my heart as just a little thank you from her son. It's just
I
very
know
sweet.
her. I know her too. Oh my gosh, yes. And Sandra, my grandpa who was from New England, and Brandon was named middle name Guy after my grandfather. And my grandfather always said, "You feed the birds and you have a long life." And so I feed the birds too. And yes, so I'm wondering if a hawk might show up.
I don't know. I don't
Do
know. I
you
don't want
have
them to.
red-tailed hawks there?
We have a different kind of hawk, Cooper's
Yeah.
hawk, I think it's called.
Cooper's hawk.
But
Cooper's
they chase after my little critters on the
hawk.
ground, so
I
I
know
don't like to see them.
you don't like that.
I know it's the circle of life, and I know that's how it happens. I just don't like to see it.
No.
Anyways, Mary, thank you so much for being our guest. Do you have any closing words for our listener or our viewer today?
Oh, I don't. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And I suppose that it during these times that we're in and that there can be so much heaviness. And I want to assure you that just one moment of gratitude, one moment of looking at the blessing and just feeling your heart open to blessings and gratitude will shift everything. And you can be assured of that. So practice that one moment, 1 second of gratitude. So I'm grateful for being here. I'm grateful for being able to share my story and bring some light and some hope.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Brandon, who is behind the scenes. And I love that gratitude practice. My dentist warned me years ago that if I don't take care of my teeth, don't worry, they'll go away. So I brush and floss like crazy. And why not have the practice if you have a habit of something else, anyways? Having some gratitude at the same time. Well, we want to thank Mary for being our guest today, and also for our listener or our viewer. Thank you for being here. A reminder, Mary's website is marydagostino.com. Her book is called 111 Days of Divine Intervention, A Mother's Healing Journey. And a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find past episodes of We Don't Die, and also my episodes of Shades of the Afterlife, my second podcast, which is on iHeartRadio. You can attend one of our free Sunday gatherings. They're 90-minute inspirational services, non-denominational. They're fun, they're filled with music and joy, and there's a medium demonstration included. So your loved one might come through. They show us just how close our loved ones really are. We have medium and psychic classes. There's other stuff there too. If you don't yet have a copy of my book, we-don't-die.com, and you'd like one, my book is called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. If you scroll to the bottom of we-don't-die.com, there's a place to enter your name and your email address. It says you get the first few chapters, but the secret is it's the entire book. Chapter 10, I think, is the most important. It's how to survive grief and navigate through it. So that is my gift to you. So again, all at we-don't-die.com. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. I'm always so happy to be your host on We Don't Die. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is very important. So take some time, slow down, get present to your soul, meditate, pull out the journal, talk to your loved ones and your soul, and just trust the words that come through. So I really want to thank you for listening or for viewing, and we'll see you again soon.